stay on track.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today on your lunch hour. My name is Catherine Connors. I am the team lead and openness specialist with Adopt for Life, and I'm here with my co-host, Valerie, our community engagement liaison. We are so happy to have you here during your lunch hour. This week's snack, chat, and keep on track is an open Q&A. So this is an opportunity for you guys to ask any questions about anything to do with adoption, customary care, kinship care, anything to do with the process. Please feel free to post in the comments below if you're joining us on Facebook Live now. If you're seeing this in replay, absolutely, you can definitely post and ask questions. We're always here to help you. Before we get started, as always, I always like to have a little disclaimer to let you all know that this is something that is being shared live and publicly on social media. So that being said, we just ask you to please be mindful about the use of names or being very detailed, because we don't want to break any confidentiality and want to make sure that everybody remains safe. That being said, we're very excited. These ones are always interesting to do because we absolutely never know where the conversation is going to lead us to. We do have a couple of questions that people have asked us on our private Facebook channels that we have with Adopt for Life. So maybe we can start with those and then we can go from there.
Sure. Okay. So this first one is very sweet. Is cocooning recommended for older children being adopted from foster care?
Yes, cocooning. So for those of you who might not know what cocooning is, obviously we know what a cocoon is, but cocooning is kind of a term used within the adoption world that kind of says families just basically shut off from the outside world and they have intense bonding and developing those relationships and that attaching. And it's really a chance for parents and children and youth to connect and only focus on themselves, their needs, getting through that initial shock of this transition. So we see this happening a lot, specifically within international adoptions. So a lot of times that terminology is used. So once the child comes home, absolutely there's going to be a culture shock, potentially a language barrier, learning new foods. And so cocooning is really a way for the child to feel protected, to feel safe, to kind of help develop that normalcy. So in foster care, however, obviously the experiences might be different. Most of the time, they will not be moving countries. Typically, you will speak the same language or the first or second language will be similar. So for cocooning in foster care, I've seen it go many different ways. And I really think it's something that is child specific. So for instance, when our children moved home, we weren't able to cocoon because we needed a lot of supports and services in place in order to remain stable. So in our personal experiences, we did not cocoon for our older two. That being said, when our third child moved in, our whole family obviously went off kilter. So we had a new addition. There was a child who was a baby, so obviously that baby had to be cared for. So we did, for a period of time, really kind of just hone in on our family, make sure we were supporting the emotional and spiritual and physical needs of all of our kids. What we also did for all three of our adoptions, which is sort of like cocooning, is we actually waited until we introduced our family members to our children. So it wasn't a great gotcha day. You heard that term, gotcha day party. We didn't have the chill. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. To each their own. We did not do that. I mean, nor did we celebrate the gotcha days because it's a trigger for our kids. Some kids love it.
Mine too.
Not mine. That's a no in our house. And really, when it was probably close to like a month before our kids actually met our extended family. And this was like mom, dad, like my parents, my husband's parents, Auntie Zia, those type of people. And it was very like, hey, we're going to McDonald's, going for an ice cream, thanks, bye. It was very short and we developed that relationship that way. So I guess it's a little bit like cocooning. So if your child is older, depending on their experiences, I absolutely would suggest getting input from your child's worker, from the child themselves. And sometimes you just have to kind of prepare to be unprepared. So maybe you're expecting to cocoon and you realize nope, not going to happen. My child needs those connections, or we need that support, or maybe you aren't expecting to cocoon and you realize your child's needs. So really listening to your child's voice will be the most important thing for that.
Something I just want to add, I was very surprised in the weeks approaching my adoption, how I had exactly the same feelings I had in the weeks approaching giving birth to my first child, and I really wanted to nest. And I was cleaning everything and tidying everything, and then a few days before my daughter was due to move in, my friends wanted to celebrate with me, and they wanted to take me to bars and to go dancing, and as if it was as if I was getting married and it was my last chance, and it was the last thing I wanted to do. I just wanted to be home cleaning. Like, I would have appreciated if they'd come over and helped me organize shelves or something.
Nesting is a big thing. I went through it with all of my kids as well, and our older two, it was a longer process, so we had time to kind of just really sit there. And of course, you always go through the, should I be buying this now? Am I jumping the gun? Am I gonna, So after we kind of knew things were secure, I totally went to nesting mode. And then for my youngest, we literally had about a 3-week turnaround. So like the nesting was like more like, oh, she doesn't have a bed to sleep in. Oh, we should buy diapers. So it was a bit of a panic, but I agree. This is like biological, like genetic, a part of our biology, I think, is both males and females both go through it. So yeah, just prepare yourself. You might feel like you really need to clean and clothes and stuff.
Our next question, Catherine, how old is too old to adopt?
That's a good question.
One.
I don't think it's fair to put a specific number on things. And the reason why that's my answer, and we're done. No. I think the reason why that's my answer is because I think it's more about health and lifestyle. So I do know people who are in their mid 60s, mid to late 60s, who are adopting a child who is actually an adult who's in her early 20s, because that makes sense for them. And I know people who are 25, and young couple, but there's health issues. And so they're still going through the process to see if they actually are going to be eligible to adopt. So I think it's less about the number, but it's more about who you are, your health, what resources, your stability, and obviously what connection and what type of relationship you're able to have with the child.
Yeah. And I think you can also, other than looking at yourself and your energy levels, your lifestyle, how much life you've lived yet and how much you still want to do, if you still want to travel or build your career, but also just taking your cues a little bit from biological parents. For example, if you're in your 50s, do you still have the energy to adopt a brand new newborn? Maybe. Maybe not. So you might, as you get a little bit older, start thinking, well, maybe the infant is no longer a good goal for me. Maybe I want to look at adopting a teenager or an older child.
Yeah, and I know that there are a lot of older generations, such as even people my parents' age, who are in their late, I'm not going to tell them there, who are older. I might be watching this. Just leave that alone. Who are in their golden years, and they don't necessarily want permanency, so they don't feel that they can actually permanently raise a child. But a lot of older people, male and female, are deciding to actually become foster parents. So this is a way that you can give back. You can have that kind of, maybe you're an empty nester, but you really miss that connection, but you don't know if you have the resources or the ability to actually parent a child long-term, permanently. And so a lot of times, a lot of children coming from who are in foster care and who are adopted, they consider their foster parents as almost like a grandma and a grandpa. So I know a lot of times when children are coming into our homes, they have like Grandma Catherine and this and that, and it's a way to still have meaningful relationships. It's a way to give back to the community. It's a way to um, still raise a child and teach them that love and give them that security that our children need. But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean always and forever. So also something to look into.
Yeah, and you have so much awesome wisdom if you've already raised children and you're doing this a second time round. So that's not something to be wasted.
Exactly.
The next question, how can I explain adoption trauma or adoption trauma behaviors to my biological children?
You guys got the good questions today. So obviously we want to make sure the age of the child. You want to make sure that you're saying things that are age appropriate. There are some amazing books and resources that can help you. Actually, a book that just popped into my mind is called What is Adoption? And it's by Sophie Sticarius. Totally not going to. I'll make sure to post the link under the bell. It's by Sophie, and it's actually a children's book explaining adoption. So I think the first part is making sure that your biological child understands what adoption means. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go into the nitty-gritty details about your adoptive child's history or their past, because that's absolutely their story. But you want to talk to them about what trauma means and what it can look like. And I think a lot of times for children, especially with my children, they learn through experience. So if you have a 10-year-old who's now having a tantrum that might be similar to a 3-year-old, we're going to be saying, this is why. So sometimes children who have experienced trauma, they may react younger than the age that they do. And that's just the way their brain is wired. And us as mom and as dad or as sister and brother, we're going to love them through this. And I think a lot of it is giving your biological child permission and space to feel and process things themselves, and let them ask those questions, because I think a lot of times as parents we try so hard to protect our children that they actually know a lot more than we probably give them credit for. So definitely start the conversation. We do have resources as well, so if you're looking for maybe an article to read or a book list, like these are something that we can provide as well. But it's being open and honest and starting the conversation from day one. Don't wait till the tantrum happens. Don't wait till the child, something happens and now your biological child is now involved in a situation that they weren't expecting. Let them have that heads up, and absolutely reach out to professionals like therapeutic attachment therapists and any type of therapeutic supports, because I think that would be beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Catherine, maybe you could talk a little bit about like how you draw those boundaries, because obviously children who are already in the home, if a new child or a new sibling group is introduced and there are a lot of trauma behaviors, other family members can experience secondary trauma. So how would you manage that when it's starting to have more of an impact on the family?
Yep, so we know this, we live this in my house. I think the first thing is, as adoptive, kin, or customary parents, is recognizing that we don't need to be superheroes, and that our trauma will be triggered. And if we have any experiences that we've had in our past, in our childhood, absolutely, I'm telling you, it will come to the front, like it or not. That's just the way it is, because a lot of times we put so much love and effort and time, and if a child is hurting, they're going to say it in the most, the children who are hurting are the ones who say it in the hardest ways for us to hear. Mm-hmm. So I think that knowing that it's okay and validating your own feelings is huge. And absolutely, you cannot do this alone. So in our household, we have children living with secondary trauma. We have parents. I am living with secondary trauma. And there's no shame in trying to reach out and getting those supports in place and saying, I can't do this alone right now, by saying, I need to step back from certain responsibilities in my life. And you have to name the elephant in the room. And it's not shaming the child, and it's not shaming the child who might be triggering you. It's about saying, we are all hurting, and we're all hurting because we love you so much, and we all need to heal and get better. And so maybe that means reaching out to your CAS and saying, we need supports. Maybe that's reaching out to your community social workers and saying, I need to know what's available. For us, I mentioned this last week, like we do bi-weekly dates with our kids where we take them out and it's a free for all, like no boundaries. We talk about what you need to talk about, and you will never get in trouble for saying what it is that you need to say. And it's just amazing getting that space. But as us as parents, give yourself that space. So Adopt for Life, I mean, this is what we do. This is why we exist, because we're parents who get it and we're parents who live it. So reach out to your community for support, and know that secondary trauma is very, very common, especially with children who come from hard pasts, and know where your limits are, and know it's okay to put yourself first and to take time for your family.
Okay, thanks. We have a question here from the Facebook Live feed. How long should you wait until you introduce family members and friends to the child? At Pride training, it was suggested to wait at least 3 months.
Yeah, so when I took Pride training many years ago, mine said something like that as well. So to clarify, you're asking about your own family. That's how I'm going to answer it. So if I'm wrong, please. So how do you introduce your own family to the child? So that goes back to that type of cocooning. It's honestly very child specific. So for us, we needed to get a routine in place. We had to get our bearings because we felt like we had no idea what we were doing, and we were just flailing around for a couple of weeks. So we waited closer to a month, but again, we controlled it. It was outside of our home. It was not in anybody else's home. So it was in a public place. It was 5 to 10 minutes long, and it was doing an activity. Our children were younger though. So if your child is older, absolutely give them a say in it, but you don't want to do it the next day. And please try not to do those gotcha parties that day, because I know it's exciting for your family. And with my family, we're very strong, tight-knit family. Everybody's coming to each other's houses, invited or not, they're there. So it was hard for us to have that conversation. I'm Italian, it's my background. That's just who our family is. So it's about having really honest conversations. For us, we felt comfortable after a month, but sometimes I wouldn't necessarily say like exactly 3 months or exactly 1 month. Let your child take the lead. Let them show you how comfortable they are, but you absolutely want to give yourself time to adjust, if anything, for your own mental health, before you start introducing your own family.
Yeah, and it can be strange for some children as well when you're like, hey, here's grandma, here's Uncle John. And for the children, they're just starting to wrap their heads around the fact that they have new parents, and they may already know someone as grandma. So just to wrap their heads around all those relationships at once, that's a lot.
It's a lot for us. So imagine being 5, 6, 10, 15, however you are, dealing with trauma, and then now saying, hey, love these new parents. Oh, wait, love Uncle John too. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot, but that's why for us, we never used labels when we first met. I said, so for instance, we did ice cream. We went out and had ice cream with my husband's sister and husband and his niece. And it was literally, we didn't say, hi, I'm Uncle Mike. It was, hey, bud, how's it going? Let's grab an ice cream. And we're looking like, oh, Uncle Mike, can you get me a napkin? Thanks. And they did not hug. There was no big reunion moment. It was short, sweet, hey, there they are. Eat the ice cream. Oh, that's funny. You have a mustache from whatever. And that was it. Thanks, bye. And yeah, we literally had to do that little bits at a time because we didn't know how the children were going to react. And it was very hard, especially, and I'm saying Italian because I'm Italian. Like if you have that culture where your parents and family just want to jump in, you need to have those hard conversations because you need your child's, you need to put your child first. So I feel you on that one.
Yeah, I heard of a family in one of my post-adoption classes who they just set up, everyone was bugging them, they wanted to meet the kids, friends and family, so they set up a little like skating session at the park, and they didn't actually invite the family and friends to skate with them, but they're like, we're going to be at the park at 1 o'clock if you want to have a quick look. And so they were able to just, you know, to see the child and be very discreet about it and still give them their privacy.
Absolutely. And one thing that actually brings up a point for me as well is social media. So if obviously everyone's going to want to see at least a picture, but just be mindful of where you are, especially if you're adopting from the foster care system. Just be mindful of posting anything on social media before things are finalized. And even afterwards, you want to make sure that you're respecting your child's privacy, and maybe they don't want pictures. Anyone who knows me knows that I post about 15 a day, but that's because we also have a great relationship with their first family. So they're on my Facebook, they're my Facebook friends, so we post for everybody. But foster to adopt, you cannot provide any details. I know for us, we did our kind of like, hey, we're adopting announcement. It was like, hey, we were matched with 2 children. M is 15 months. S is 3. Please give us privacy as we support it. Thanks so much for the love. You know, CL, whatever. So it was just kind of an
years.
Yeah, see you in 3 years. Sun diapers, basically. You know. So we just kind of put a very small thing, and we had an adoption shower prior to them moving home, but obviously they were not included. I know, Val, we talked about this before. Ask for an adoption shower, even if your child's older.
Make sure you get the adoption shower.
Do it. You deserve it.
And many of my friends.
You need it. Everyone needs it. You will need the supplies. If anything, it's like get a meal train going. But yeah, so just be mindful of social media as well. And for us, what we did once things were finalized, before I started posting on social media, we have this app on my phone called Life Cakes, Lifecakes. We are not sponsored by them. We're not getting any. But it's a private app that people have to sign in. So you give a specific password to, and they can see vlogs and pictures and videos. And so I actually kind of like vlogged and tracked my entire adoption experience. So, and then when we were matched with our children, we added their first families and then a couple members of my family and my husband's family. So we were able to kind of keep them involved that way, but it was a very, very controlled thing.
Oh,
so
awesome.
A possibility. Yeah.
Okay, what countries can I adopt from internationally as a single parent?
So the rules on that seem to be ever changing. So I will not list off specific countries because I'll be honest, I don't know much myself. However, there are countries where you can adopt as a single parent. There's some where you cannot. So before you sort of get your heart set on any adoption, make sure that you understand what the policies and rules are for that specific country and with the Hague Convention, because that definitely makes a difference. And it's not even single parenting. Sometimes if you're married, you have to be married for over 6 years, and sometimes you can't have a BMI over whatever it is, or you can't have even things like mild anxiety. I heard a mother recently was denied because she had mild anxiety.
All of North America.
So we're all out for that. No. So just be mindful. Some countries are very, very strict. Some countries only will allow out of country adoption for children with special needs or children who may have medical needs. So although I don't know specifically what one is for single parents, do your research before you get your heart set, because the last thing you want to do is, you know, start having your vision boards and everything for what this adoption might look like, and you realize you're not eligible. So, and absolutely reach out to your parent liaison with Adopt for Life, because we can help do that research with you as well.
Okay, I just shared a link from the Adopt for Life resources page on international adoption. We also have a lot of information on various different adoption topics, including international versus public versus private, the pros and cons of each. Okay, will a male-female couple be favored over my same-sex couple to adopt?
So they're not necessarily saying you need to be nuclear, you need to be X, Y, or Z. What they're looking for is the family who has the right fit to the child's needs. So you want to make sure, again, that we're focusing on what parenting style you have, what skills, what resources, what connections, what support you have. Um, LGBT community is strong and it's growing and thriving and continues to help bash so many stereotypes and so many barriers that are out. And we're just so thrilled to see that there is more movement and support for the LGBT community and adoption. So absolutely, in my experience, they're looking more for the right people, not who are you sharing your life with. Mm-hmm. And if you do see, and if you do feel that there is that type of discrimination or you need help advocating, that's absolutely what we can help you do as well.
Yeah. Because it is illegal, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Everyone has the same rights. We just want happy, healthy people. They don't want specifics about who you are and your lifestyle. And yeah.
Yeah. What do I need to know before adopting a child with Indigenous heritage?
So the CYFSA that came out in 2018, I'm going to say 18. There's a new one coming out, I believe, next year. But the more recent Child Youth Services Act, which is the governing body that protects children, youth, and care, and children, youth everywhere, basically, across our province, has really made big strides in maintaining Indigenous communities intact. And obviously, absolutely realizing just the horrific history and past with the 60 scoops, 50 scoops, 70 scoops. So a lot of times they primarily are matching children who have Indigenous heritage with families and parents who are Indigenous themselves. There are cases in situations where children are adopted who are Indigenous to non-Indigenous families. And you absolutely want to make sure that you are involved with the child's band, understanding their culture. I was at a meeting a few months ago with a manager of Native Family Services, and she said, we keep hearing the term cultural competency, and I think that's a huge part of what we do, but going to a powwow twice a year doesn't make you culturally competent. And I think that's really important for us to kind of know that if you are adopting a child with Indigenous any heritage, any culture that might be different from yours, you absolutely want to ingrain yourself in that and find mentors and supports for you. So if you are potentially looking at a child and you realize that they are Indigenous, you want to put yourself in a place of support and knowledge and learning. So going to workshops in colleges, doing webinars, talking to the Indigenous community. There's local community supports like here in Peel Region. There's the Peel Region Aboriginal Network. Going in, sitting down, having a meeting and learning what you can and how to make yourself an ally and to support a child who has that same heritage. But you definitely want to make sure that you're doing this way before the child comes home.
I'm gonna share a link there actually to a story about how one mother went about that process, which should be really helpful. Mm-hmm. And also just wanted to mention that we do have a closed support group in Adopt for Life, our FNMI group, and it's quite an active group in terms of talking about what workshops, activities, lectures, resources are out there. So if that does become your situation, please make sure to ask to join that group.
Absolutely. And I know we even do like a powwow etiquette and a drumming circle etiquette. So if you're coming into an Indigenous or Aboriginal cultural event, I mean, you're going to walk in there not knowing what to do. Obviously, you might be anxious and nervous. So we actually have parent liaisons and supports who can actually help walk you through that. So going to a workshop of what to do, what not to do, it just kind of helps push you at ease, but also helps support your child as they're continuing to grow their roots.
Okay. Next question. if I adopt a child from a different cultural background to me, how can I make sure they have a good sense of their own identity?
That kind of draws into the last one. So absolutely, we keep hearing this the term. At least I've just been hearing it recently. Is called cultural mirrors. And so, if you're adopting a child who has a different culture or race of you, you want to be able to ingrain that child within that culture. So, is there a teacher? Is there a teacher or a mentor or someone? Are they going to go to after school programs? I know that believe Toronto CAS and I'm sure other Children's Aid actually have workshops for parents to teach parents how to do hair braiding for children who are African Canadian, because it's absolutely not just about having your hair done, but it's about the time and the bonding and I mean that type of relationship as well. So I think being able to make those connections ahead of time, but maintaining them is the hugest thing. So again, like I said, going to a powwow twice a year does not make you culturally competent. It's what you're doing every single day. So maybe you're learning a few food dishes. Maybe you're connecting, if safe and possible. Hopefully, you're able to connect with the child's first family. Maybe it's extended family members to keep their culture a part of it. And a lot of times you see intersecting cultures. So for my older two, they identify as Indigenous. I am Italian, my husband is Scottish, and our youngest is Irish. We're just kind of mishmash of it all. And so when we do our traditions, we respect everyone's kind of culture, and we kind of everyone gets to bring a piece in there. So we've learned as we grow and as time have come on, we kind of been able to make our own traditions, but respecting our children's background far and beyond is a huge part of our everyday life.
Yeah. Your hair example reminds me of something I experienced. So we're in an interracial family, and with my daughter in the first year, and I was still learning about different hair products, and she was going through a shift in what she was doing with her hair. So we went to a hair store. And a Black assistant came and helped us, and she was showing us different products and explaining what would work. And then we went to the cash to buy a couple of things, and then she just started like filling this bag with free samples and gels. And I think she felt a little bit sorry for my daughter and wanted to just be like, here, have it all, have it all. But yeah, people are generous, but it's really important that you don't start making those relationships after the child has joined your family, and you really have to take a look at your life, like where you live, what the diversity on your street. You don't pick the school that you think is like number one academically without taking into consideration what's diversity like among the students, among the teachers, what things does the school celebrate. You have to really have things set up as much as possible before your child moves in, and be very realistic about whether you're going to be able to provide enough. It's you have to go beyond tokenism and make sure that every single day your child doesn't feel like a guest in your family or your community, that they just feel like they belong.
Yeah, and I think that you should have answered this question. I don't know why you should have answered that question from the beginning, but I think that it's also important that for you as a parent, you need to be okay in going to these cultural events as well. So I need to be okay with being a white person going to Indigenous events and not understanding the culture, and I need to be okay with that. So I think just knowing who you are and owning your own privilege is a whole other tangent, but owning your own privilege is a huge part of it, and just being humble and knowing that it's not going to be seamless. Things are going to be said, or you might have mistakes will happen, but just keep showing up and making sure that you're still going to support your child regardless of your comfort level in different events.
Yeah, it's actually really good to be at an event where you're in the minority, and then you suddenly for the first time get an understanding of what that's like for your child when you take them to something where they're in the minority. It's okay, next question. What are the pros and cons of open adoption? Well, this one is definitely yours, Catherine.
I can't pull that one off. Okay, so the pros and the cons. First and foremost, um, if your adoption is not finalized, you need to go with what the orders are saying, what the Crown or extended care order is saying. So that's first. You don't necessarily have a say until things are finalized. You can go to mediation and with an openness order, but if it's a closed, if a child is extended care / Crown ward closed, there is no access. So I just want to put that out there. There are absolutely many, many, many benefits to open adoption. I'm just going to name off a few. Identity is huge, connection to their child's culture, knowing where they came from, developing confidence, and hearing parts of their story that they cannot hear from us as adoptive parents. Those things are crucial in a child's healing. It's crucial in identity development. So a lot of times, around age 11, 12, 13, when a lot of children, sometimes younger now, children go through that kind of identity piece. It's crucial. For us, it was also absolutely imperative because we were able to get medical information about our children that we just didn't know. So our daughter, they're pending a potential very rare genetic diagnosis where she'd be the only female in the world with this diagnosis. But in order to get it, she needs blood work from her birth parents. Well, if I don't know who they are, then how am I going to ask them for this? And so we were very lucky to do that and be able to get this done, and hopefully we'll get some answers soon. But for us, it's just another connection that our family has. So the way we view it is our kids have two sets of parents. And then same with our youngest as well. She was placed into an open adoption. So we have an amazing relationship with them as well. And we text and send pictures and this and that with each other. And it just is a beautiful relationship. However, it doesn't always work this way. And I'm not ignorant to that fact. Sometimes there are safety concerns. Sometimes there are health concerns. Sometimes there's substance abuse or mental illness, or maybe there's relationships that aren't safe for the children to be around. That has to trump that. So child safety has to trump anything else. But I do want to let families know that openness comes in different ways. Openness doesn't mean face-to-face conversation. For about 3 years of our children's lives, we rented a PO box in a different city from where we lived, and we mailed letters and pictures and updates, and they were able to mail things to that PO box. And that was just because a lot of it was my own anxiousness and not knowing who these people were, because we knew no information. I highly suggest for anyone who is looking into open adoptions or want to learn about what open adoption is, please watch Judith Morrissey's documentary Adoption ID. It absolutely was a game changer for us. She is actually a part of our board with Adopt for Life as well, an African Canadian committee. And hearing her story, I realized that open adoptions and adoptions is not about me and my fears and my judgments. It was about these children needing a piece of who they were. And so slowly, we've been opening the door, and now we have a great relationship. So for anyone going into it, who's looking, who isn't unsure on what to do next or how to start it, or if this is, should be, at what point do we allow our children to have this type of relationship? Adopt for Life does have an openness group, a closed adoption group that is a safe space for us to ask questions, non-judgmental, and get support. And we also have an openness committee. So if it's a question that is a little bit beyond my means, or I feel that we should get support from other people, I can bring in our openness committee that's comprised of professionals who have worked in the field for many, many years in different capacities. So absolutely do that. And just know, openness is it's just like any other relationship, right? So it's not going to always be smooth and beautiful, but with enough time, we need to try and help support our children. And especially with social media these days, closed adoptions really aren't closed anymore, because it's very easy to go on Facebook and Google someone's name or type in someone's name, and there we go. So we want to make sure that our children are in a healthy spot for it as well. I can talk all day in this, so I'll stop talking in this. Clearly, I'm very passionate about this.
Yeah, we have our last few minutes. So if anyone who's watching has a burning question, now's the time to put it up there and we'll try to get to it. I have a question here that came in earlier. I heard that LGBTQ2S+ youth are overrepresented in foster care. How can I become an adoptive parent of a child who needs support as a result of being rejected for their sexual orientation or their gender identity?
That's probably a lot more common than people realize, and it's absolutely heartbreaking for me, and I will just leave it at that, because it's we need to educate ourselves, and we need to learn what we can to help support our children and youth in understanding their identity and giving them a safe space to be who they are, and to understand that any rejection that someone feels, that's a result of their stuff, not the youth. That's the parents' stuff, or whoever the caretakers issues were. You want to make sure that the child has access to appropriate therapy, LGBTQ2S positive therapy. Make sure you're in the right communities. We all know that there's more conservative communities and a bit more open-ended communities, so make sure that you're putting yourself in the place. But honestly, it's about asking questions, and it's about educating yourself, and it doesn't mean they're not going to be slip-ups, or maybe pronouns won't be correct for the first little while, but absolutely start educating yourself, because this is an issue that continues to happen today in our society, and all children deserve to be safe, and all youth deserve to feel safe and wanted and loved, and to feel that it's okay who you are, no matter who that is.
I'm unmuted, right?
Yep.
I'm just sharing a link here in the live feed. There's a beautiful video that was made recently. So the Adoption Council of Canada has been doing a project with people who are either adopted, adoptive parents, biological parents, birth parents, just to give a sense of what experiences people have had, either through adoption or foster care, kinship care. And there was one very moving video that was made by a trans youth who was put into foster care because they were questioning, and eventually aged out of care. So I'm going to share the link for that. And if you can find your way from there to all the other videos, I strongly recommend losing a few hours. Really help you to get an understanding of adoption.
Absolutely. And I know I'm over, and I've been a few tangents here, but if you are someone who identifies within the LGBTQ2S+ community, and you are interested in becoming a mentor, or you have information that you could potentially help support youth, there's absolutely ways that you can become involved, whether you're an adoptive parent or not, and you want to be able to help support the community. Please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll make sure that you're linked with the appropriate people, because we definitely need a safe space for these kids.
Catherine, we've come to the end.
That's it. I went on a few tangents. I think we only went to 4 questions. I'm sorry. These were good questions. I think hit some passion points for me. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining in on a few of my tangents here. But as always, this is just a time for us to share and learn and grow, and keep the questions coming even after this goes. Valerie, as always, thank you so much, and for putting up with my long-winded answers is always good as well.
I love your answers.
We'll just extend the snack and chat, that's fine. Next week, our snack, chat, and keep on track is all about FASD, and we actually have an FASD worker joining us, so that's going to be very exciting for us. So please bring in all your questions. Start Facebook or Instagram or email, or we're trying to be as accessible as possible. So please reach out and ask any questions that you have about FASD, raising children and youth with FASD. Val, I think you have you just wanted to talk quickly about Instagram.
Yes. So, in case you didn't get enough of Catherine and me today, on Friday, we're doing an Instagram takeover with today's parent, which we're really excited about. So, we're going to be on their Instagram stories and we're answering questions for people who are thinking of adopting. So, if there's anyone in your world who is considering adoption, and has questions, please send them there. It starts at 12 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
And we'll be there sharing our wisdom in really, really short increments. We have like, what, 15 seconds?
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to have to do, guys. I'm going to have to.
So it's going to be quite different.
We're going to do some practicing so that we make sure we get information in for you guys too. But yeah, feel free to join or start following today's parent and get your questions ready. And Val and I are going to be taking over for an hour.
Forever.
Adoption everywhere. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed your lunch as you listen to us chat, and join us next week. Same time, same place for the snack chat, and keep on track. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.